Die epidemioloog Dr. Saul Johnson kuier vanoggend saam om oor die Delta COVID-19 variant en Multichoice se vennootskap met die Solidariteitsfond te gesels. So good morning Dr. Johnson, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thanks so much for having me on your show.
Dr. Johnson, the country is in the throes of the third wave with growing concerns about the Delta variant. What do we need to know about this variant at this stage?
Yeah, it's. I think everybody's aware. I'm sure they've watched the president speaking and people's own experience, I think, of seeing many people around them, particularly in Gauteng, getting infected, many of them becoming ill. So I think it's important. The Delta variant was first certainly documented in India, but it has now spread widely around the world. It is much more transmissible than previous variants. In other words, you're much more likely to get infected from other people if they are carrying this particular type of the coronavirus. So I think you have to be careful. This is a time to take, what the president said seriously and really try and follow all the guidelines to stop being infected. We don't know yet whether this variant, we don't know whether it's more severe, causes more severe illness, but it's certainly, you are more likely to catch it, so it spreads much faster.
Now, do we have any assurance that the current vaccines that are currently being enrolled or rolled out in the country can fight this variant?
We do know that that the Pfizer vaccine, there is good evidence from the UK that Pfizer remains very effective against the Delta variant. We don't have that sort of evidence for the J&J vaccine, just because the J&J vaccine has not been used in as many countries and isn't being used in the UK, where this has been studied more extensively. But at this stage, there's suggestions that J&J may not be as effective at stopping you from getting infected with the Delta variant, but there still is good evidence that it will stop you getting severely ill. So, the message has to be, continue to get vaccinated. If you have the opportunity to get vaccinated with a COVID vaccine, whether it be Pfizer or J&J, you should really take that opportunity, get the vaccine, because it, in all likelihood, it will give you protection against the Delta variant.
There are a lot of questions and misinformation that the country is battling with, including pressure from the EFF for the government to consider vaccines from China and Russia. How different are these vaccines from those that we currently have in the country?
Yeah, the Russian vaccine uses quite a similar mechanism to AstraZeneca and J&J. It's what we call a viral vector vaccine. But I think the Chinese are using a slightly different way of vaccinating in their vaccines. Excuse me. But I think what's important to know is that that our regulatory authority, which is SAHPRA, has to go through a clear and rigorous process to make sure that these vaccines are fit to use. And honestly, there have been questions around both the Chinese and the Russian vaccines, both around the data to support the fact that they are highly effective and around their manufacturing processes. So I think SAHPRA has every right to be very careful about reviewing the data that they get and making sure these vaccines are fit to use. There's no reason why we wouldn't use them. If they are, if they're safe and they're effective, I'm sure SAHPRA will approve them. But I think SAHPRA needs to assure themselves before they are allowed to be used in South Africa that these are safe and effective vaccines.
Now, we have seen from various research studies that there is vaccine hesitancy. One group that has been identified is women because of the possibility of blood clots. So I guess my question is, how safe are vaccines and, can we trust them?
Yeah, what's interesting actually is that we are vaccinating many more women than men. So to be honest, our problem is reaching men and convincing men that they should get vaccinated, because, and this is This is the same for many things in healthcare. We know that men are less likely to seek care than women. And so the message I'd like to put out today is certainly, men out there, please go and get your vaccines. The issue around clotting, as I'm sure you appreciate, with any medication or vaccine, there are potential side effects. We do see that. And when you're vaccinating hundreds of millions of people, you start to see rare side effects, which are as a result of the vaccine. So, yes, we've seen some strange, clotting syndromes, particularly due to the AstraZeneca and J&J vaccine. But these are very rare. I mean, we're talking about a few in a million. That is your chance, like 1 or 2 in a million you've got. So your chances of getting a severe illness from COVID are much, much higher than your chances of getting blood clots from one of these vaccines, much higher. So, the recommendation is, please go and get your vaccine because, in South Africa, you've got much more chance of A, either getting COVID, especially at the moment, or B, being in a road accident and suffering a severe injury than actually, getting a blood clot from these vaccines. These vaccines are, in fact, remarkably safe. They've been used now, all over the world among, as I say, hundreds of millions of people, and they are overwhelmingly safe.
I'm looking forward to the rest of this discussion, so jy kan ingeskakel daarvoor bly 'n bietjie later. Ons gaan voort met vanoggend se gesprek met die epidemioloog Dr. Saul Johnson, wat vanoggend saamkuier om oor die Delta COVID-19 variant en ook Multichoice se vennootskap met die Solidariteitsfond te gesels. So Dr. Johnson, I would just like to welcome you again, and I would like to start this part by asking you, how important is it for everyone to get vaccinated?
Look, there are 2 reasons also why I think it's really important for people to take the COVID vaccine. The first one is obviously to protect themselves and their families, and I think that's really important. We know, particularly as we roll out this initial phase in the over 60s and starting from July in the over 50s, that this is the age group that's at high risk of getting COVID and getting severe disease. So it's really important that especially if you've got illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, that place you at great risk, please get vaccinated to protect yourself. But more than that, we know that until we get to around 70% of people who have been vaccinated, it's hard to stop this epidemic. And we all want to stop this COVID epidemic. We all want to go back to some form of normality in our lives. And so, we're not going to get that until we have wide enough vaccine coverage.
As we know, the country is on level 4 lockdown with some strict regulations. So what can we do during this time to ensure that we flatten the curve?
Yeah, I think, we know a lot more than we did a year ago about how this virus operates. And what we know is this is a respiratory virus. It spreads through the air. It spreads through droplets. When you talk, when you sing, if you're having a meal with other people, that's when it's very easy to spread this virus around. So, I think the simple motto is, socialize with people really only that are people that are in your household. If you have to meet people, meet them outside, meet them in the open air, because that really is the safest place to be. Follow the guidelines, which are strict. We're on level 4, which means, don't congregate inside, don't have gatherings. I think this is all really critical to stop the spread of this virus.
Please just tell us about the partnership between Multichoice and the Solidarity Fund.
Yeah, the Solidarity Fund was set up as a response to the COVID pandemic. Lots of individuals and corporations and philanthropies have put money into the Solidarity Fund. Multichoice has been extremely supportive in terms of helping us spread the message. The Solidarity Fund itself has funded a range of initiatives, ventilators, supporting the opening of extra facilities to respond to COVID. We've been quite involved in supporting the vaccine rollout as well as running communication campaigns that people might have seen around how to keep themselves safe. And we're tremendously grateful to Multichoice for having supported the various campaigns that we've been running to try and inform South Africans about how to best respond to this terrible epidemic and how to keep themselves safe.
Dr. Johnson, in hindsight, is there anything else we could have or should have done to prevent the current situation that we find ourselves in at this stage?
Elsa, it's a very difficult question. Governments all over the world have struggled about the best way to respond. Did we make mistakes? We certainly did make mistakes along the way. Could we have done lockdowns differently? Personally, I think we could be a lot more nimble. I think we probably should have introduced a smarter, stricter lockdown about a month ago, because I think we could have seen this third wave was coming, and I think we could have already started preparing better for the third wave. But it's easy to say in hindsight, and I think, in this country, we really are battling between trying to save lives and stop this virus from spreading and trying to keep the economy going, which we know is we have such a fragile economy. We don't want to stop economic activity. I'm very sympathetic, for example, at the moment to people who work in restaurants and in the hospitality industry who are now seeing their livelihood threatened. So I think government has to face this constant weighing up of what is the priority at any given time. And it's not; these are not easy choices to make. Unfortunately, with the vaccine rollout, we had AstraZeneca. Then there was evidence that the AstraZeneca vaccine was not as effective in South Africa, so we had to stop the AstraZeneca rollout. Then there were issues around the J&J vaccine. There were issues around J&J manufacture in the US and the quality coming from the plant and contamination. None of these things we could do anything about. So, we're in a situation where there's a worldwide shortage of vaccines, which, also makes our lives really complicated. So, I think we're all trying to do the best we can. We can, as South Africans, we have a choice. We can either, complain and be upset, or we could try and say, this is the situation we're in. How do we all come together and respond as best we can?
Now, the president did say that the latest variant is spreading quite rapidly. So do you think South Africa has the capacity to show a rapid response to possible mutations in the near future?
It's so unpredictable. And I've been caught out myself many times during the course of the last 18 months because we just don't know what's going to happen. I think the good news is that it seems like there are not many more mutations that this virus can make. Viruses can only mutate in so many ways before they reach a limit. And there is a feeling that maybe this particular virus is reaching a limit to how much it can more mutate that makes it better able to infect human beings. So, I'm confident that, and honestly, our vaccines continue to be highly effective against the variants. They may not be as effective against some of the new variants as they were against the original form of the coronavirus, but they still are very effective. So, it's hard to predict. Maybe something will come along that surprises us again. But I think, we are able to respond. These vaccines are effective. I think this pandemic will end at some point.
And then lastly, just to conclude, and we choose not to complain this morning, but what is your overall take on the way our government is managing the pandemic? And is there something that you would do differently?
Look, I think we're trying, the government I know is trying to get as many vaccines into the country as possible and to ramp up vaccinations. And I think there's still space to do that better. I think the Department of Health could still be more proactive about trying to look at how best we can roll out. I think and credit to the president, because he said, my big concern was that this process of registering through EVDS would exclude people who really struggle to work that technology. And the president on Sunday night said, if you can't register, then go to a site and you'll be registered there. I think that's already a big advance. I think we need to look at how we can best actually take vaccines to people. So I think on the vaccination side, I think we're starting to see the sort of movement that will really ramp up our vaccination program. I think in Gauteng, we need to open as many beds as possible. And I hope that the Gauteng provincial government are looking at ways to really open as many beds as possible, because I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we're really struggling to have enough hospital beds for all the people who are ill with COVID at the moment and require oxygen and possibly require ventilation.
Dr. Johnson, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Dit was dan Dr. Saul Johnson wat vanoggend saam met ons gekuier het.